In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to choose the right 3PL for your supplement brand. What are the things you should be thinking about? What are some common pitfalls you might want to avoid? If you are working with a 3PL, how do you vet them? What are the sorts of questions you should be asking? My name is Brennan, and I own and operate a 3PL based in Portland, Oregon, and we work with a bunch of growing e-commerce brands. Some of them are supplements, some of them are other things. But in today's video, we are going to dive into what are the things we see from our side. I've been on the brand side. What are some of the things that I would be thinking about if I was a brand, considering working with a 3PL? That said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So first off, what are some of the challenges that are unique to supplement brands that you might not have with other e-commerce brands? One of the main things that first comes up is these are perishable products for the most part. Sometimes there's regulatory compliance stuff around some of them, but really the main thing that we see is these are perishable products. You do need lot tracking, and you need to make sure your lot tracking works well. And you need a good strategy for how to manage your inventory to make sure that you're moving products off the shelf before they expire so they're not going bad and you're having to dispose of them. You also need to be making sure that you're implementing some sort of lot tracking strategy, whether that's first in, first out, last in, first out. Totally depends on the product, the company, what they're doing, but making sure you understand that you have some sort of strategy in place for those sorts of things is critical with these supplement brands. Another huge one is understanding what your 3PL's storage capabilities are. So some products might need to be temperature controlled. You might also need specific mailing capabilities during summer months. For example, if you are mailing gummies, let's say, right? You need to make sure that those are not going to melt when it's 110 degrees and it's sitting in a mailbox in Arizona or Texas in the middle of August. And so having the strategies in place to make sure that doesn't happen is going to save you a ton of time and money. Another challenge that is pretty specific to supplements, and specifically the inventory of it, just has to do with the forecasting, right? In a supplement brand, you might have 100, some expire next month, some expire in 3 months from now. How many should you order? What's the expiration date going to be? What supplier do you want to use for those? At least in our experience, we've worked with a lot of suppliers that can provide a very similar product. And so you do get a little bit of optionality there, depending on your product, which can be nice and helpful for you to get maybe diversify a little bit with your suppliers so that if one of them goes out of business or something happens, you're not totally hosed and your customers can still get a very, very similar product. But understanding what your limitations are with your suppliers, what those contracts look like, how they relate to getting product into your 3PL, what the process for that is. All of these are definitely minor, but challenges that can add up and create bigger issues over time. And so having a really kind of clear understanding of the entire logistics process from creation all the way to the shipment to the customer is super important. So whether you are shipping your own packages right now, maybe looking to work with a 3PL, maybe you are in the search for a 3PL to start your supplement company, these are kind of the key factors and things that I would be thinking about. Just having the back of your head questions to ask your 3PL that I think are important and set you up for a good relationship going forward with your 3PL. First off, as silly as it may sound, I would make sure that they work with other companies that handle supplements and understand kind of some of the processes that come along with that. I know for us, we service a couple different supplement companies, and there definitely is some specific processes that we've had to put in place, whether that's from intaking inventory, how we actually go about counting it, how we handle cycle counts and the lot tracking and how all that information is given back to them, as well as even things as if we're replenishing inventory, what stock are we pulling from? Some brands have us pull from certain lot numbers first, even if they might not be the oldest or the first to expire. So everyone just has some different requirements, and understanding that your 3PL has structure in place to handle that and be able to handle the things that you're trying to accomplish as a brand that falls into their existing process is super important. Because on the 3PL side, if you start asking for stuff that's outside their box of process, it gets difficult for a lot of 3PLs to fulfill on those things just because it's out of the norm of what they're used to doing. This also starts to begin to tie into compliance, right? How your supplements are handled and shipped. Sometimes there's specific requirements, temperature requirements. If it's hot out, can things not melt? The warehouse requirements that do things have to stay below a certain temperature, especially when you start getting into the area of perishables and food and supplements, because they come in every form nowadays. It gets a little sticky. And so just understanding, and especially some of the expertise that a 3PL might be able to bring to the table when working with you, right? Especially if you're a new brand and you're like, hey, we have these two problems. It's very likely that they have worked with another customer and solved those similar problems, and you're able to get ahead by solving those problems right away because they're just gonna have the answers for you. Like we talked about a little bit already, understanding storage conditions. So both temperature and humidity are important when it comes to supplements. just depending on what you're shipping, this does matter. Some places get really, really cold during the winter and really hot during the summer. Another really important thing to be looking at specifically with supplements is what does the software that your 3PL is going to allow you to use. Almost all 3PLs nowadays have some sort of inventory order management system that you as a customer get access to go into and view your inventory. But what kind of reporting and things do they give you in there? Are you able to see like projected lot tracking reports and forecasting reports? Some are definitely better than others, and that's definitely not to say that you should choose a 3PL solely based off the software that they use. Most software out there is pretty solid, and you can also always finagle things in Excel to get what you need out of it, but it's just something that can be an added benefit. If the reporting is super easy to get access to, the information that you need to make business decisions, it definitely is a big thumbs up, and it can save you a lot of time over time. Another thing that always comes to mind when I think about working with supplement companies, and I've been on the brand side of the supplement company as well, and working with another 3PL, is just having a confidence in that stuff's going to get dealt with correctly. Having a partner that has dealt with the regulatory compliance, that has dealt with how to ship goods and store them in the right temperatures, and is able to give you suggestions on maybe you should be packing things in a more efficient way, or hey, we worked with this other supplier one time for a similar product, it might be worth chatting with them to see what their pricing looks like. There's all these kind of efficiencies that you get, and really it's just years and years of experience of having solved a lot of these issues and worked with a lot of people in this space that a 3PL is able to bring to the table, and that's kind of what you get out of the box working with a partner that's been established like that. I know there's been a bunch of cases where customers have come to us with, hey, here's this custom packaging that we're using, and we're able to go, hey, like we actually have another supplier we've worked with for a while, it's definitely worth quoting, and a lot of times it ends up coming back cheaper. They order their packaging through them, it's more streamlined for everyone, and so there's definitely some benefits that you get that aren't necessarily monetary right away, but some what I think of like soft benefits to working with a 3PL, and you just get access to a team of people who has done this for a long time. I know one of the most common things that we're able to help solve for people is just how to package things more efficiently. A lot of times customers will come to us and like, hey, we use an 8x4x4 box, and we're able to go, hey, like actually you could probably use a 6x4x4, cut some weight off, save a couple dollars here and there on the shipping labels, and it really starts to add up over time, especially as you scale into higher volumes. Another thing to consider is the availability of labor that you get when working with a 3PL. So they are able to handle those surges in volume, especially if you have a seasonal brand of any sort where you get surges during Q4 or Mother's Day or the summer, whatever it may be. 3PLs are built and designed so that one day you could have 20 orders and the next day you could have 1,000, and it is their job to respond to that increase in volume and increase their capacity and their labor to make sure those orders are still going out and meeting your SLAs, that you have an agreement with them. And that is really the core job of the 3PL. And that's the main advantage that I believe you gain on top of the expertise and understanding the space, and sometimes even saving money on the shipping itself because of their better rate cards that they will get with the volume that they're shipping. But that is really just such a main benefit to me, is like I don't have to think about if I have an explosive sale and it does fantastic, right? I don't have to worry about, oh, we're going to get delayed on orders, or we're going to get customer service tickets, and the whole ad cycle downward of orders not going out on time or not having inventory in stock. So with all that said, some of the most common things that I would be asking as a brand thinking about working with a 3PL. I think first off, as dumb as it sounds or as straightforward as it sounds, is ask for a existing customer that is a similar brand, hopefully a supplement brand, that you can talk to and understand, maybe get an idea of what their process looked like before and after working with the 3PL, their experience with the 3PL, and just typically like what maybe your account manager or what that communication would look like, so you can get a really clear idea of like, here's what I would get out of working with this 3PL versus this one. And I think that customer referrals are a great way to do that. A lot of e-commerce people are out there looking out in the best interest of other e-commerce people, right? Even though it is a competitive landscape, everyone at the end of the day I've always met has been really nice and helpful. And so being able to talk to fellow people that are in the very similar space and facing similar issues and understanding how that 3PL could potentially help you or hurt you, I think is super valuable. And it says a lot about the 3PL, how their customers talk about them. I also think it's really valuable if you are at a different 3PL, if you're shipping your own stuff, is work with the 3PL you're thinking about working with to build a model out to average your costs or get an idea or estimate your costs on what it would be like to work with them given their existing volume. So then as a brand, you can go back and be like, okay, working with 3PL A versus B versus continuing to do our self-fulfillment or whatever that looks like, here are what the costs are across all of them. here's the benefits of each. Maybe we really like partner A, but partner B is cheaper. Is the money difference worth the trade-off? I think it's a super valuable exercise that everyone should be doing. Which brings me to my next point. I always tell brands that cost is definitely, in the world of shipping, one of the most, if not the most important things. But I always urge people to be careful of choosing 3PLs specifically solely on cost. I think a lot of times 3PLs are pretty similarly priced. The prices show up different in rate sheets, whether it's in shipping or packaging materials or picking. And at the end of the day, they all end up being pretty similar. So unless you are a massive, massive brand that has some crazy requirements, I think it's really important to, assuming the costs are similar, obviously, make sure to choose a partner that you feel good about working with long term versus nickel and diming here and there, because a lot of the times the price is something that's able to be worked out. And even on the 3PL side, we're so appreciative to work with good people and clients that are good to work with. It makes our lives easier. And from the brand side too, being able to trust your 3PL and know that they're a true business partner rather than just a service provider, I think is so important to the brand success long term. Another thing that I would be asking about is how are other brands that are working with handling returns processing compared to how your brand wants to handle returns processing. Supplements is definitely confusing due to the fact that you may be putting some stuff back into inventory if you can guarantee it's not opened, but does your 3PL have process in place to do something like that? Are they able to support your existing return process and SOPs the way you want them done? Or is that something new that they're going to have to develop? If it's something they're already doing, it's going to be much easier for them to implement, and you're going to have a lot more confidence in them to be able to follow those SOPs. And so to wrap it up, those are a lot of the things that if I was a brand owner or a company owner of a supplement brand thinking about working with a 3PL or am already working with one and maybe looking to switch, I think are great questions to ask, things to be thinking about, especially as your brand grows and evolves. There are a lot of new challenges that you're going to end up facing. And so thinking about those when choosing a partner is so important. And with supplements, like we talked about, there is a ton of nuance to this, the same way there is with anything else. And so just understanding what those nuances are and how you choose a good partner, I think is so important as the brand grows and the company grows. And with all that said, hopefully that was helpful. If it was, give us a like and a subscribe. If you've got any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below and we will get to it in a future video. And yeah, until then, happy shipping.